Cryptocurrency and crime. It seems like we can't talk about one without the other these days.
Yeah, it's a topic that's really captured the public imagination, hasn't it?
It has. And you sent over this Wikipedia article on cryptocurrency and crime, and, well, let's just say it's a bit of a rabbit hole.
It really is. It's amazing how much this space has evolved, even just in the past few years.
Ready to dive in.
Absolutely. Where should we start?
Well, I think before we get into the nitty-gritty of specific scams and heists, we need to lay a bit of groundwork, make sure everyone's up to speed, so to speak.
Sounds good to me.
So let's start with the basics. Cryptocurrency wallets, everyone knows what those are, right?
In theory, yes. It's where you store your digital assets. But the technology behind them can get pretty complex.
Right, and that complexity is where things can get interesting, or should I say risky.
Exactly. Take transaction malleability, for example.
Transactional what ability?
Malleability. It's a bit of a mouthful. Basically, it refers to a vulnerability in some blockchains where the details of a transaction can be altered while it's still being processed.
So you're telling me that someone could, say, change the amount of cryptocurrency being sent without anyone noticing?
It's a bit more complicated than that, but essentially, yes, it's a vulnerability that hackers have exploited in the past.
That's unsettling, and it sounds expensive.
It can be. In 2022 alone, there was an estimated $3.9 billion loss to cryptocurrency crime, according to a report from Immunify.
Wow. Okay, so we're not talking about small potatoes here.
Not at all, and those numbers are likely even higher now. This is a constantly evolving space.
So where does all this criminal activity take place? What are the biggest targets?
Well, cryptocurrency exchanges are a big one. They're attractive targets for hackers because they hold large amounts of cryptocurrency in one place.
Right. It's like robbing a bank, but instead of gold bars, it's Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Exactly. And some of these heists have been massive. Take the Mt. Gox hack, for example.
Mt. Gox. That one rings a bell. Didn't they lose, like, a ridiculous amount of money?
They did. Back in 2014, they were hacked, and around $350 million worth of Bitcoin vanished into thin air.
Wow, 2014. That feels like ancient history in the world of cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Did they ever catch the hackers?
That's the crazy part. To this day, no one knows for sure who was behind it or where all that Bitcoin ended up. Some of it has been recovered, but a large portion remains unaccounted for.
Talk about a cold case. So, cryptocurrency exchanges. What else?
Well, another high-profile case involved Bitfinex, another exchange. They were hacked in 2016, and $71 million worth of Bitcoin was stolen.
Okay, so not quite as much as Mt. Gox, but still a significant amount of money.
It was. But what makes the Bitfinex hack so interesting is that in 2022, a good portion of that stolen Bitcoin was recovered by the U.S. government.
Wait, really? They managed to track it down after all those years? Haha.
It was a pretty wild story. A couple was arrested for allegedly laundering the stolen Bitcoin. And get this, they were using some pretty unorthodox methods, including buying gift cards with the Bitcoin and even trying to launder it through the purchase of a $500 Walmart gift card.
A $500 Walmart gift card? Seriously?
Seriously. It seems like they were trying every trick in the book to try and clean that stolen Bitcoin.
And it backfired spectacularly. That's what you get for trying to launder millions of dollars with a Walmart gift card.
I guess so. But it does highlight how difficult it can be to truly anonymize cryptocurrency transactions.
Right. So we've got these massive exchange hacks. What other kinds of cryptocurrency crimes are we talking about here?
Well, moving away from exchanges, let's talk about something that exploded in popularity a few years back. Initial coin offerings, or ICOs.
Oh, yeah. ICOs. I remember those. It felt like there was a new one every day back in 2017.
There were.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of them turned out to be scams. Well, the promise of ICOs was that you could get in on the ground floor of the next big cryptocurrency. Invest early, and you could make a fortune. The problem was, a lot of these projects were nothing more than elaborate pump-and-dump schemes.
Pump and dump, like with pin stocks.
Exactly. The creators would hype up their project, get people to invest, and then disappear with the money once the price had been artificially inflated.
And people fell for it.
A lot of people did. The saddest group estimated that nearly 80% of ICOs launched in 2017 were scams.
80%? That's insane. Were there any, like, really high-profile examples of these ICO scams?
Oh yeah, there were some big ones. BitConnect is a classic example. They promised these crazy returns through their trading bot. Even had those catchy ads everywhere.
Right. I remember those. They were all over YouTube.
Yeah, they went viral. But it turned out the whole thing was a Ponzi scheme.
So the early investors were just getting paid with money from new investors.
Pretty much. And when the music stopped, a lot of people lost a lot of money.
Ouch. This Wikipedia article also mentions Centra Tech. Didn't they have that whole thing with celebrity endorsements?
They did. They were promoting this revolutionary debit card that was supposed to let you spend your cryptocurrency anywhere. Even got Floyd Mayweather and DJ Khaled to promote it on social media.
Wow, so they really went all out.
They
Uh,
did. But it turned out that the whole thing was a sham. They didn't even have a working product.
So what happened? Did they get caught?
Yeah, the founders were eventually arrested and charged with securities fraud.
Good. Glad to hear that. It's just crazy to me how people can be so gullible.
Well, you have to remember that this was still a very new and unregulated space back then. A lot of people didn't really understand what they were investing in.
Right, which is why it's so important to do your research.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got exchange hacks and ICO scams. What else? This Wikipedia article also mentions something called pig butchering. That sounds that unpleasant.
It is. It's a particularly insidious type of scam that's been on the rise in recent years.
Okay, so how does it work?
Basically, the scammer targets someone on a dating app or social media platform. They spend weeks, even months, building a relationship with the victim, gaining their trust. They often present themselves as successful investors. Maybe they even brag about their cryptocurrency profits.
So they're playing the long game.
Exactly.
Right.
And once they've gained the victim's trust, they start suggesting that they invest in cryptocurrency. They might even offer to help them set up an account on a specific platform.
Which is, of course, a fake platform.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
Or it might be a legitimate platform. But the scammer will convince the victim to send their cryptocurrency to a wallet that they control.
So the victim thinks they're investing in cryptocurrency, but really they're just sending their money straight to the scammer.
That's the gist of it.
Yeah.
And because they've developed a relationship with the victim, they're often able to convince them to invest large sums of money.
It's just awful. People can be so cruel. This Wikipedia article says that 12% of Americans who use dating apps have been targeted by these kinds of scams.
It's a growing problem. And it's not just limited to dating apps. Scammers are using this tactic on all sorts of social media platforms.
So what can people do to protect themselves?
Well, first and foremost, be very wary of anyone you meet online who starts talking about cryptocurrency or investment opportunities. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Good advice. What else?
And if you are considering investing in cryptocurrency, do your research. Don't just take someone's word for it, even if they seem trustworthy. There are a lot of resources available online where you can learn about different cryptocurrencies and investment strategies.
So knowledge is power.
Absolutely. And remember, it's always better to err on the side of caution. If you're unsure about something, don't be afraid to ask for help or advice from a trusted source.
Good advice. But it's not just about scams and heists, right? There's a whole other side to cryptocurrency crime, one that's a bit more, shall we say, traditional?
Right. Cryptocurrency has also become a tool for money laundering.
Money laundering. So we're talking about criminals using cryptocurrency to clean dirty money. How does that work?
So with money laundering, you're essentially trying to take money that has been gained illegally and make it look like it came from legitimate sources.
Right, like washing the dirty off the money. But how do you do that with cryptocurrency? I thought it was supposed to be trackable on the blockchain.
Well, it's not as simple as just moving the money from one wallet to another. Criminals use various techniques to try and obfuscate the trail of the funds.
Obfuscate, right. Such as, give me an example.
One common method is called tumbling. This involves sending the cryptocurrency through a series of complex transactions, often involving multiple wallets and even different cryptocurrencies, to make it harder to trace the original source of the funds.
So it's like bouncing a check through a bunch of different accounts.
In a way, yes. The goal is to make it look like the money is coming from a variety of legitimate sources, rather than a single illicit one.
Clever. But this Wikipedia article also mentions that money launderers are turning to NFTs? Non-fungible tokens, those digital art things?
Yep, those same ones. While NFTs themselves aren't inherently designed for money laundering, their unique characteristics make them appealing to criminals.
Okay, so how do you launder money with like a Bored Ape Yacht Club image?
It's not so much about the image itself, but rather the way NFTs are bought and sold. Because each NFT is unique, it can be difficult to establish a fair market value.
Right, which is why some of them sell for millions of dollars.
Exactly. And that lack of price transparency creates opportunities for manipulation. For example, a money launderer could create a shell company and then use that company to buy their own NFT at an inflated price.
So they're basically creating fake demand to justify the movement of large sums of money.
Precisely. And because all of this is happening on the blockchain, it can be difficult for authorities to prove that any wrongdoing has taken place.
That's a pretty sneaky way to launder money, and it sounds like a nightmare for law enforcement to track.
It definitely presents challenges, but it's not impossible. Law enforcement agencies are getting much better at investigating cryptocurrency-related crimes.
So what are they doing? How are they fighting back against these increasingly sophisticated criminals?
Well, one key strategy is following the money, even if it's been tumbled or laundered through NFTs. They're using sophisticated software and techniques to analyze blockchain transactions, looking for patterns and connections that can lead them back to the perpetrators.
So even though crypto is often touted as being anonymous, it's not entirely untraceable.
Exactly. And in addition to these investigative techniques, there's also a growing push for greater regulation in the cryptocurrency space. Governments around the world are starting to realize that they need to establish clear rules and guidelines to prevent these types of crimes.
That makes sense. If cryptocurrency is going to become more mainstream, there need to be safeguards in place. So what kind of regulations are we talking about?
A lot of it focuses on Know Your Customer, KYC, and anti-money laundering, AML regulations. Basically, this means that cryptocurrency exchanges and other financial institutions need to verify the identities of their customers and report any suspicious activity.
Which makes it more difficult for criminals to operate anonymously. So it sounds like things are moving in the right direction. But for the average person out there, what can they do to protect themselves from becoming a victim of cryptocurrency crime?
Well, I think the most important thing is education. The more you know about cryptocurrency, how it works, the risks involved, the better equipped you'll be to spot scams and avoid making costly mistakes.
Don't invest in anything you don't understand. Got it.
Exactly. And be wary of anyone promising unrealistic returns or pressuring you to invest quickly. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
And if you do decide to invest in cryptocurrency, what are some basic security measures you should take?
Well, for starters, make sure you're using a reputable exchange or platform. Do your research, read reviews, and look for platforms that have a good track record of security.
Don't just go with the first one that pops up on Google.
Definitely not. And once you've chosen a platform, enable two-factor authentication. This will add an extra layer of security to your account, making it much harder for hackers to gain access.
Makes sense. It's like locking your front door and then putting on the deadbolt.
A good analogy. And finally, be very careful about where you store your cryptocurrency. Hardware wallets, which store your private keys offline, are generally considered to be the most secure option.
Okay, so hardware wallets for maximum security. Got it. Well, this has been an incredibly informative, if somewhat alarming, look at the intersection of cryptocurrency and crime. I'm feeling a lot more knowledgeable, but I have to admit, I'm also feeling a little bit paranoid now.
I understand. It's a lot to take in. But the good news is that by being aware of the risks and taking appropriate precautions, you can significantly reduce your chances of becoming a victim.
Knowledge is power, as they say. And with a little bit of caution, we can all navigate the world of cryptocurrency safely and responsibly. Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of cryptocurrency and crime. A big thank you to our expert for guiding us through this complex and ever-evolving landscape.
It was my pleasure. And remember, as with any new technology, there are always going to be risks, but there are also incredible opportunities.
As always, it's all about being informed and making smart decisions. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.